Morning punters, here we are for a bit of Punting Melbourne Style. I'm joined by DK.
Hey Potsy,
how are you, mate? Punters punter, good to have you back, mate.
Yes mate, been a little while, but here we are.
Here we are. And I thought I'd open the batting today just talking a little bit about the past couple of months and then what we've got coming up going into winter, and a little bit about Sandown on Saturday, a few interesting things there, and then we can touch on a few things that I brought up last week on that short 10-minute video.
Yeah, I caught that. I said it'd be worth discussing, I would have thought.
Yeah. So the last couple of months, so there was a patch in March where I had a bit of a grubby run and I dusted myself off, picked it up and had a really strong couple of months. April was really good. All of May's been really good, but I had a bad day there on Saturday. I had an ordinary week last week. So
get the gods, mate, the gods.
I mean, it's a bit of everything, you know. You can slowly get softened up. I made a few mistakes last week that I'm looking back on thinking, you know, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And the errors you make. But the important thing is to just be really brutal with yourself, recognise the errors that you made.
Review,
and just, you know, make sure you don't compound it by backing them up, doing it again the following week.
Well, that's always, it's constant, but as I said, with errors, I say to other people when they ask me, when you make blues, as long as you learn from it, as long as you know why.
Yeah.
I know why that happened. I didn't have that horse rated high enough. Or blah, blah, blah. I know why that happened. If you're sitting there scratching your head, saying, how did I lose on that race, or why'd that happen, I still can't work it out, then you've got a problem.
You're in trouble, yeah.
Sit down and come up with the answer, and then you can move on and learn from it.
Yeah, I can start with, like, in the 2-year-olds at Sandown on Saturday, I really should have just gone with the fit horses. I didn't want the first starters. I was happy to oppose them. Yeah. I backed Expedius, but I made the mistake of backing 2 horses off a Ballarat 1,000-metre race.
Yeah, they turned out to be the vulnerable ones.
Yeah.
And again, those Ballarat times, you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, it's very tricky.
They're very tricky. I mean, just going off our database, we use ratings to win, you really got to work out what the right answer is, because those different tracks there and conditions and everything, like to the naked eye, they were, well, not to the naked, but to the raw time, they were too fast. Too fast. But anyway, yeah. Yeah,
so I really should have just, the 2 right horses to be on that race were Expedition and Scottish Rogue, and so that was, it's clearly an error on my favour. Now the reason I'm talking about errors is that what we just spoke about, you've got to recognise them and be willing to discuss them. It just frustrates me that we have commentators in the media that refuse to look beyond the surface. So, I've got to single out Matt Hill for criticism here. All day, he just wanted to mention on Saturday how you couldn't make up ground. Now, the problem is, when you have a series of meetings on the hillside, and then you go back to the lakeside at Sandown, the jockeys forget how to ride the hillside course, and it's vice versa. You know, on the hillside course, you could almost wait till you straighten up, and before you really use your horse. Whereas on the lakeside track, it's absolutely critical to be gaining momentum going down the hill. And they're completely different, and the jockeys almost forget. Now, in all those early races there on Saturday, several horses made up ground, but the on-pace runners were basically given a 2 to 4 length head start because the jockeys were waiting to get around the home turn. It's got nothing to do with the course. So when you look at the races there on Saturday, there were 21 place getters in the 7 flat races. 10 of them were on pace and 11 of them were off pace. So there was no problem making up ground. But if you waited till the home start and you gave those on pace runners 2 to 4, you know, it's too much ground to make up for moderate.
And a couple of them, I just saw a couple of races there. Peacock, when that was D done, just getting away with the leader, and the other one I saw that was well ridden outside the lead was truly discreet. Now he made sure he was a really good rider, I thought.
Brad Willett was also
Luke Curry.
Oh, sorry, Luke Curry. Yeah,
he rode outside Brad, but he made sure Brad didn't have it soft because he was on that fit horse.
Yeah.
So he said, "You're not having it too soft, you know," and just but they got a break on the rest because, you know, that's, as you said, they were the ones up the front.
Absolutely. So there's a case of Luke Curry not allowing Brad any advantage, but the other horses behind Luke didn't follow him and didn't cash in on the opportunity.
Cash in on it. That he'd been making Brad sort of earn it a bit, you know.
Then in the last race, swap it around. Brad, well, I was thinking Brad, he rode 50 stars beautifully, and Ben Mellum on Andes rode it beautifully as well. Gave it every opportunity to chase 50 stars, but 50 stars is too good, right? So that race, really good riding in the 3-year-old 2100-metre race. Some really good riding by the jockeys.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? That was the Mark the favourite. So
they all had their momentum going down the hill, and he was in the spot where he couldn't.
But even before that, you saw when Ben Mellum, the change of tactics on Greycliff for one reason or another. Okay, right, conservatively, so he's riding it conservatively, and he's caught 3 wide. And then he sees, oh well, there's Eddie Brown, I can sort of get up and park outside him, and someone said, well, I can follow B. Mellum here and get on his back, and then there's a 3 wide line, and Eddie Brown sort of snook it,
yeah,
you know?
Totally,
So,
and then as they come around down the top turn around downhill, all the 3 wide lines improving their momentum. Well, he's just sitting there with, you know, in all sorts
and he
of
could have
trouble.
gone in or out, he chose to go in,
Yeah.
and it was in.
But there was a number of races there that you know, where it was just the on-pace runners were given too big an advantage, and the jockeys, well, the next door meeting, it's like they need one meeting to get their eye back in on that course. So anyway, I think
the same thing happened to the synthetic on Tuesday. I just rated that route meeting this morning, and the on-pace is there a significant amount. I think because it hasn't been a meeting there for a while, the leaders seem to get the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a significant advantage because they were left alone.
So anyway, the important thing is, punters, when you make blues, you've got to put your hand up, be prepared to accept it, and equally, when we're talking about what the riders did on a certain day, it's not just picking on them or trying to find alibis for ourselves, it's making an honest assessment. A lot of those performances and results won't be replicated because the jockeys did not ride the track very well in a lot of those races on Saturday. So it's just all part of the mix.
When I review pots, and when you say reviewing, so you do. There's 2 races in I went. There's what the betting says will happen, and the SPs, and then what happens, and why did it happen, and then you come up with your answers. Or so you know the betting says that should beat that you know from that favourite, and these are the margins as in the prices, and then you go translate that into what actually happened, and that helps you come up with your answers. You know, in my opinion, you know.
Absolutely.
Whether it's going to happen again or...
So that 3-year-old staying race is a good one to talk about in that regard. So the betting said that if we run this race 10 times, Lucky for All is going to win at about 7.
A significant advantage. Yeah.
Right, so it's got it. But part of pricing that horse, you have to factor in the fact that there are 13 other runners. The other jockeys are only looking at one horse, and that's part of what can happen. So now for those out there that just want to sool everyone into those type of horses on Thursday and Friday and taking odds on when there's going to be deductions and everything else, you know, I don't see what the upside is for anyone, and I would just ask yourself why you're doing it, and then anyone that got stuck right into that horse on Thursday or Friday or whatever, even on race day, would have been pretty filthy with the ride, right? It's just a natural reaction, because you know. The ones that hurt the most, DK, is when you do your on a shorty. You know, it really stings.
Maximum pain, yes. Maximum pain. It's the shorter, the more pain.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway.
So I would, you know, I reckon most tipsters worth their salt are sort of looking Hutchie. He's good tipster. I saw him on the Get On. He said, oh yeah, it's the obvious, but we'll be having something on Missouro. It can run really well at those good sections at Geelong. And there's a 50 to 1 winner, and someone's tipping you $1.70 chance, and someone's saying have something each way 50 to 1 chance. Yeah. You know, I know I want to be with long term. You know, like just looking outside the square.
The disappointing part for me, DK, is when I looked at that race on Thursday, I was quite keen to back Heavenly Thought at the time to beat.
I saw that on your little show, your Thursday show, Potts, your little cameo.
But of course, that horse did get on the flight to Brisbane.
Yeah, it did.
And it ran into a field where I don't know all the other horses, so I just decided to let it go, and home it
goes. What, 8 to 1 or something, was it?
It was double figures.
Double figures.
Great game, DK.
Great game, mate. A great game.
So while we're talking about that little video I did on Thursday night, DK, one of the things I mentioned was Miss Leonidas and momentum, and what an interesting case that is, because it's just a strange set of circumstances led to an opportunity for us to actually see what she can do.
What she can do, but I think that's when you see horses that clear momentum all the race, that's what they can do.
Yeah. In
a good tempo, clear momentum all the way. So I did the form for Friday. I was doing the form for Friday night. Did it Thursday afternoon, and come up there. I think there was a 1400 maiden there, and Saluminate was in it.
Yep.
And it was Brad, Gate 2. Of a track and distance second from a wide barrier. Oh geez, the robots are going to have a big horn for you. You're the complete obvious, but you have got a chink. You should have probably run down the thing the other day, and you didn't. At 260 or 270. So I was looking up the front of the field. Is there any a similar thing? Can a leader lead that can get away on it and can't run down? And no. And then I come to this McKent horse, Lavasi. He hasn't done much, but I said, oh, you're in the box seat in a slow pace last start, which is probably not you. Mid-kent horses like Darren Weir horses like momentum. And then there it is. He trialled it on the Monday. So this is the races on the Friday.
Yep.
At a mid-prep trial, win won a trial.
Yep.
On the back up onto a wet track. I said, now you got my interest. So I go and watch the trial, and it leads all the way. No blinkers. And beats a horse called One Hot Dane, who's a quirky but talented galloper, who finished a length off Jungle Edge one day. So I'm looking and saying, gee whiz, now the form guide says you're sort of this horse, but that you have had, that's the first time I've ever seen you have momentum, build your momentum. Is that the real you, or is the form guide the real you? And I said, I'm going to, and then so Potts, then Thursday night Potts comes on and says, when you see horses with momentum all the way, that's them. You know, that's what they can do. So I watched that, so I was, I'm going to have something on you because you're going to be good odds, the other one's going to be short. And sure enough, led all the way and got the money. Slumo loomed up to run it down, it didn't run it down.
Beautiful. What price did the
it was double figures. The right, I knew the Robots couldn't find it because you couldn't find it off the form guide really. Didn't have much form. But if you could either price it off the trial or price it off the form guide. Price it off the form guide, it's a 15 to 20 to 1 chance. Price it off the trial, I did. I marked it 6 to 1 or something, you know. I said, well, I'm just going to have something on you. It was the only win I'm back for the week, I'm not gloating. But just that momentum. So first time in its life it went straight to the front, had clear momentum all the way. So Illuminate, it's got a bit of a chink, loomed up to run it down, and so. And another horse, I'll just say, while I was on that, I was reviewing a race at Bendigo. Lime Kilns won it. Now they run really good time. They set up a leader, went berserk in front, and a horse called Pepino. Pepino's had 10 goes or 11 goes or whatever, and he got in the train behind Lime Kilns, and he was freely moving the whole way, loomed up, blended, and he's run an enormous peak. But because that's what he can do in those circumstances, you know. It's just he's been, for the first time in his life, he's been clear all the way in a rhythm, blending into the race. It's taken him 12 starts. Normally he's down on the rail because he misses the kick and flashing home. But that momentum, that seeing a horse in its rhythm with momentum the whole way, that's what it can do.
Yeah, you know? And that race with Limekinson and what's it called? Pepino. Dragging them along. The horses behind have been dragged to a new level. That gives them an opportunity to win a maiden that they might not have had if they're well placed at the next run.
No, it's given them all a good base, but they have to have the right circumstances. But that on that Lime Kilns, it's a group horse. It's a group horse.
Really nice horse.
Oh, for sure. Is it a nice horse?
Yeah, the bit that scratched my head a little bit about that race, there was a 2-year-old in it that ran almost too good a race, but
the Patchy Kid that run 5th, the grey horse or something, or 6th. I could see it had blinkers first time. For some reason, it ran a figure anyway. I could make a case why it did it, so I was happy to rate that race up.
The 2-year-olds are interesting. They're starting to filter into the maidens and against the other horses, and they're bobbing up. So it's
crossover time with them. So there's the horses with upside, so a bit of a talent.
So the lesson, one of the main lessons out of all that, DK, is that I'm listening to what you're saying. Is that when you find a race with a pretty low bar and with an obvious favourite that has a bit of a chink, there's a chance to go and find a horse that's going to be able to do something if it gets the circumstances that allows it to use full momentum.
That's right, and particularly up the front of the field. You know, you've got to run on that horse. Musilimat always comes from off the speed. You know, it looked scary on the turn, but then it just did what it did the start before, which is so. But just particularly a horse up the front. What can get up the front? What's having a drawn better than has been? What's the improver that's going to be forward who can do more than he's been doing? It's a bit of value. You know.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a good spot for us to end part 1. We'll be back in a second and we'll have another crack.